You woke up this morning and did something your ancestors could never have imagined. You turned a handle and warm, clean water appeared from nowhere. You squeezed a tube and put a perfectly engineered paste on a plastic tool and cleaned each individual tooth. You stood under falling hot water for 10 minutes without thinking about it once. And then you probably still felt gross and needed coffee before you felt human. Now take all of that away. No handle, no tube, no falling water, no plastic anything. Just you, whatever the weather is doing, and 30 other people who are all dealing with the exact same problem. This is what hygiene looked like for most of human history, and the answer to how our ancestors actually handled it is not what you expect. Let's start with teeth, because right now your mouth contains roughly 700 different species of bacteria. That number does not go down just because you brush, it just gets managed. Ancient humans had none of the tools we use. No toothbrush, no toothpaste, no floss, no mouthwash. And yet, when archaeologists examine ancient human skulls, they find something surprising. The teeth are often in better condition than yours. Not always, not perfectly, but meaningfully better in specific ways. A 2013 study published in Nature Genetics analyzed the bacteria preserved in ancient human teeth going back thousands of years and found that the diversity of harmful bacteria in human mouths actually increased dramatically after the agricultural revolution. Before farming, ancient humans ate a wide variety of foods: roots, berries, meat, nuts, leaves. The bacterial ecosystem in their mouths reflected that variety. After farming, when humans switched to grain-heavy diets full of refined carbohydrates, the specific bacteria that cause tooth decay exploded in numbers. In other words, ancient people did not have better dental hygiene. They had better food. The moment humans began eating processed grain, they created cavities. But they were not doing nothing either. Archaeological evidence shows ancient humans used small sticks, specifically frayed at one end, to clean between their teeth. We have found these tools at sites across Africa and the Middle East going back thousands of years. The chewing stick, made from trees like the neem or the miswak, contains natural antibacterial compounds that actually do reduce harmful mouth bacteria. Modern studies have confirmed this. Some of them work nearly as well as a standard toothbrush. They did not know the chemistry. They just noticed certain sticks left their mouths feeling cleaner, and they kept using them. Now here is where most people expect the conversation to go to body odor, but there is something more interesting to talk about first: skin. Not how it smelled, but what lived on it, and what that invisible ecosystem was actually doing. Your skin right now is covered in roughly 1.5 trillion microorganisms. Bacteria, fungi, viruses, tiny mites living in your pores. That sounds horrifying, but most of them are not hurting you. Many of them are actively protecting you. They compete with dangerous pathogens for space. They regulate inflammation. They produce antimicrobial peptides that function like a living, self-repairing shield across the entire surface of your body. In 2018, a team of researchers led by dermatologist Julia Oh at the National Institutes of Health published a large-scale analysis of the human skin microbiome. They found that the diversity of bacteria on human skin has declined significantly in populations that use modern soap and hygiene products daily. The bacteria we have scrubbed away were not all harmful. Some of them were keystone species, organisms whose presence keeps the entire ecosystem stable. Without them, opportunistic bacteria that cause acne, eczema, and chronic skin inflammation move in and take over. This is not speculation. It is a measurable, documented shift that correlates directly with the rise of modern hygiene. Ancient humans never triggered this collapse. Their skin carried a richer, more diverse, more resilient bacterial ecosystem than yours does right now. They were not cleaner than you, but their skin was, in a very specific biological sense, healthier. They still smelled, but the bacterial balance on their skin was different, and they understood something practical even without knowing the science. They used plants. Archaeological evidence from multiple sites shows ancient humans rubbing aromatic plants onto their skin. Mint, lavender, juniper, sage. Not for the fragrance, for the insect-repelling properties. But the effect was the same. They smelled like the forest, which, if you think about it, was not a bad way to smell in a world made entirely of forest. Hair is where it gets genuinely complicated. Your hair, if left completely alone, goes through something called the no-poo stage. A period of several weeks where your scalp overproduces oil because it has been conditioned by regular shampooing to compensate for constant stripping. Ancient humans never started the cycle that created the problem in the first place. Their scalps produced oil at a rate calibrated for a life lived without shampoo. But the social dimension of hair care is what matters most here. Ancient humans picked through each other's hair to remove lice and parasites, a behavior called social grooming. And this was not a minor activity. It was one of the central rituals of daily life. Psychologist Robin Dunbar at Oxford argues that grooming, physical, intimate contact between group members, was the original form of human social bonding before language became sophisticated enough to take over. Sitting with someone and picking through their hair requires trust. It requires closeness. It requires time. And our ancestors did it for hours every single day. Not because they had nothing better to do, because it was one of the most important things they could do. And here is the part that connects grooming to something much larger: touch. Modern research has shown that physical touch between trusted individuals triggers a measurable release of oxytocin, lowers cortisol, reduces blood pressure, and strengthens immune function. A 2014 study published in Psychological Science by researchers at Carnegie Mellon University found that people who received more frequent hugs were significantly less likely to develop infections after exposure to a cold virus. Physical contact was literally protecting them from getting sick. Ancient humans lived in a world saturated with touch. Grooming, carrying children, sleeping in clusters, sitting shoulder to shoulder around a fire. Their immune systems were being constantly reinforced by the very closeness that defined their daily lives. Today, the average adult in a developed country touches another person far less frequently than any of our ancestors ever did. We sanitize our hands after contact. We maintain physical distance as a social norm. We have replaced touch with screens. And our immune systems, our stress hormones, our mental health, all of it reflects that loss. We removed the bacteria from our skin and the contact from our lives, and then wondered why we got sicker in new ways. Water. This one is simpler than people think. Ancient humans were not afraid of water. They lived near it. They needed it. They washed in it. The idea that our ancestors never bathed is completely wrong and seems to come from a confusion between ancient people and medieval Europeans, who are a completely different story. People living near rivers and lakes washed regularly. The Hadza of Tanzania, one of the last groups on Earth still living a traditional foraging life, bathe in rivers and clean themselves with water as a normal part of daily life. What ancient humans did not have was soap. The earliest evidence of soap production comes from ancient Babylon, around 2800 BCE. Before that, people used alternatives. Sand worked as an abrasive. Ash mixed with water creates a mildly alkaline solution that cuts through grease. Clay draws oils out of skin when applied and rinsed. None of these are as effective as modern soap, but they are not nothing. And for a body whose skin carried a bacterial ecosystem that was largely self-regulating, they were often enough. And then there is the part that nobody wants to talk about, but everybody wonders about: toilet habits. Ancient humans dealt with this the same way every other creature on Earth deals with it. They went outside. But they were smarter about it than that sounds. Multiple archaeological sites show evidence of what researchers call latrine areas, specific spots away from sleeping and eating areas that groups consistently used for waste. This matters more than it sounds. Separating waste from living areas is one of the most important public health behaviors that exists. Most of the great plagues and epidemics of human history happened not because people were dirty in the modern sense, but because urbanization crammed thousands of people together without the space to maintain the distance between waste and water that small groups naturally maintained. Our ancestors, moving regularly and living in small communities, naturally avoided the sanitation catastrophes that would later kill millions in cities. They were not more hygienic because they were smarter. They were more hygienic because they never stopped moving. Here is what stays with me about all of this. For thousands of years, humans kept themselves clean enough to survive, to thrive, to build cultures and relationships and languages and art without a single product, without a single drop of anything that came from a factory. And the methods they used, the chewing sticks, the aromatic plants, the social grooming, the latrine areas, the natural water sources, were not primitive workarounds. They were solutions that worked. Some of them, like the antibacterial properties of miswak sticks, we are still studying today because they genuinely hold up against modern alternatives. And some of what they had, the rich bacterial shield on their skin, the daily physical contact that strengthened their bodies, we have actively destroyed in the name of progress. The morning routine you did today, the hot water, the engineered paste, the falling water from nowhere, is extraordinary. It is the result of thousands of years of accumulated knowledge, but it is solving a problem that for most of human history was solved by paying attention to the world around you, noticing which stick leaves your mouth feeling cleaner, noticing which plant keeps the insects away, noticing where to go and where not to go. Your ancestors were not dirty. They were working with different tools, and some of those tools, it turns out, were better than we ever gave them credit for.